Made possible through support from ARC Thrift Stores, Atlantis Community Inc., CCDC, Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, Developmental Pathways, the Arc of Aurora, and Rocky Mountain ADA Center. A THINK+change training.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Petrie.
And we're advocates for the Arc of Aurora. And today we'd like to present a THINK+change training. And the topic of the training for today is going to be ADA in schools. Petrie, what do you got?
So ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, was created in 1990, and it provides freedom from discrimination by providing reasonable accommodations and access to physical settings. So, for example, in a school setting, a lot of people off the top of their heads may just think of perhaps ramps or elevators so that kids who might be using wheelchairs can access the building. But it includes a whole bunch more than that. For example, wheelchair accessible bathrooms, wheelchair accessible school buses so that kids can get to and from school and even go on field trips. It includes assistive technology. So some kids may need a talker to be able to communicate.
Right, and so that would be covered under ADA?
Mm-hmm. It is, because that is part of the reasonable accommodation.
Okay.
It also includes things like Braille, interpreters, the use of sign language, real-time captioning, extra time maybe to complete tests or assignments, preferential seating. All of these things are included in the ADA. One thing, though, I do want to point out is these kind of accommodations and access to physical settings are separate from what ADA provides in terms of FAPE. So just so you know, the ADA does not necessarily guarantee free access to public education.
Okay, and so some of these accommodations through ADA can actually be housed inside the IEP plan.
Inside the IEP, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, yes. So all of these accommodations and more, those are just a few examples, also pertain to any field trips that kids may want to go on or access, as well as extracurricular activities such as, sports, drama, art, whatever, cheer, whatever that looks like.
And those accommodations would be housed in a 504 plan for any activities for a federally funded program that pertain to things outside of the actual school building.
Or the school day.
School day,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Field trips, etc.
Exactly. One other thing that I think is important to note that people may not know is that these ADA accommodations also pertain to parents. So if a parent has a disability, they can receive some of these reasonable accommodations as well so that they can participate in, for example, parent-teacher conferences. So they can really be a part of their kids' education and that dialogue. So I think that's apparent.
I think a really good thing to also take out of this all is ADA, it's not just getting in the door of a building.
Exactly.
It's being able to use whatever services
right.
or access whatever you need in the building. It's not just, once again, people just think of it as getting in a building.
Once you're in the door.
But once you're in the building, you have
day.
the right to be able to get the services that anyone else would get.
Yeah, throughout the entire school day. So another thing that we wanted to talk about, and I think, Jeff, you've got some good information about this, is how the ADA pertains to not only the 504, which we've touched on a little bit, but also IDEA.
Yeah, so a lot of people kind of mush those three things together, and they're all separate. They all can stand on their own. And what I want to do is kind of pick through it and really have you clearly understand what each does. So ADA, it's an actual civil rights law that prohibits discrimination. And it applies to entities funded by any federal, state, or even privately owned. And all of this it can be for employment, transportation, public accommodations, telecommunication, etc. So it's not necessarily in a school setting,
right.
But it's a civil right law.
Yeah.
Now, IDEA, it's a federal law, and it's to provide intervention and special education to children with disabilities up to the age of 21, only in school settings though. So IDEA is only in schools. ADA can be anywhere.
Across any setting. Right, and we'll touch on different environments that ADA pertains to in other trainings. But
then also the 504, which is also kind of sometimes confused with IDEA and ADA. The 504 prohibits discrimination based on disability in programs and schools that are federally funded from the Department of Education. That's all it's going to cover. Which, what we talked about earlier, that could be a field trip, it could be extracurricular activity, after school, sports, etc.
And that's separate from an IEP, correct?
Separate from an IEP,
okay.
But you might have an IEP and you want to have a 504 plan so you get the accommodations you need that is in a program outside of school. But once again, it has to be something that's federally funded by the U.S. Department of Education to get a 504 plan.
Okay, so you mentioned something under IDEA, it goes through 21. So does that mean that all of these reasonable accommodations and accesses to physical settings through the ADA include transition programs?
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to add one thing that I actually found out doing some research. ADA also covers people with HIV and many other diseases. It provides that support that I didn't even think about that, but
right.
That's a good thing to know. So if you are affected by HIV or you have a loved one affected by HIV, look into ADA because you can be covered for some needs that you have.
That's a really good piece of information.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. Well, so this has been discussing ADA in a school setting. Please stay tuned for more Think Change trainings coming up in the near future. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Think Change. Talks, trainings, and tools to help in your work for or with people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. Learn more at www.thinkchange.training.